Case 1. Jennifer Berman. January 13th, 2014. West Palm Beach, Florida. Before 8 o'clock in the morning, Jennifer Berman sent 2 messages. The first was an email to her estranged husband. It said she had done the best thing for our family. The second was a text to her cousin. It said she was going to kill her children and herself. Richard Berman read the email while driving. He called 911 immediately, but it was already too late. Jennifer was 48 years old. She had once been a successful real estate agent in one of Florida's wealthiest neighborhoods. The family had sold their luxury El Cid home for $1.2 million. By 2014, she was working 12-hour overnight nursing shifts just to keep the lights on. She had lost her lawyer. She had pawned her late father's watch to buy groceries. The divorce had dragged on for years. In court documents, Jennifer alleged her husband refused to pay for basic household necessities, toilet paper, food. She described the relationship as financially controlling and emotionally destructive. That morning, inside the home on Pershing Way, Jennifer shot her 16-year-old son Alexander and her 15-year-old daughter Jacqueline. Then she turned the gun on herself. When Richard arrived at the house, a neighbor ran out screaming. Richard went inside anyway. He found his son Alex in his room. The boy's alarm clock was still ringing. All 3 died from gunshot wounds. There was no trial. Jennifer Berman was pronounced dead at the scene. The West Palm Beach police classified the case as a double murder-suicide. No further investigation was required. 2 gifted teenagers, a cellist and a violinist, were gone. Their mother, crushed beneath the weight of financial ruin and a broken marriage, had decided they couldn't go on without her. The alarm clock kept ringing. Nobody turned it off. Case 2. Parveen Bibi, June 8, 2016. Lahore, Pakistan. The street was quiet that morning. Then a woman burst through her front door, tore off her shawl, beat her chest, and screamed at her neighbors. Not in grief, in pride. Zenat Rafi was 18 years old, a young woman who worked quietly, loved deeply, and made one decision her family could not forgive. She married the man she loved. His name was Hassan Khan. He was a motorcycle mechanic. He was also Pashtun. Her family was Punjabi. In their eyes, that was unforgivable. For years, Zenat had endured beatings at home. Her own brother once hit her so badly she needed 3 stitches. When she finally eloped and married Hassan before a court magistrate, she thought the worst was over. It was just beginning. Her mother, Parveen Bibi, came to the newlyweds with a promise. "Come home. We want to throw you a proper wedding. Honor the family." Zenat was terrified. She told Hassan, "I will be killed by my family." But her uncle swore she would be safe. She went. 9 days passed. Then Parveen made her move. On the morning of June 8th, Parveen and her son tied Zenat to a wooden cot. They poured kerosene over her. They set her on fire. The smoke reached the neighbors before the screaming stopped. When firefighters arrived, they found Zenat's remains on the staircase. The autopsy confirmed she was alive and breathing when the flames started. Parveen didn't run. She stood in the street and confessed. Loudly, publicly. She called it justice. Investigators found the kerosene containers. They arrested Parveen the same day. Her son was taken shortly after. At no point did she express sorrow. In January 2017, a special court in Lahore convicted Parveen Bibi of premeditated murder and sentenced her to death. Her son received a life sentence. As of February 2026, Parveen Bibi remains on death row in Pakistan, awaiting execution. Case 3. Mariel Bimis, February 23, 2014. Stone Mountain, Georgia. It started with a text message on someone else's phone. Mariel Bimis was 21 years old. By all appearances, her Facebook page, her Pinterest profile, she was a devoted young mother. Smiling photos, crafts projects, dance classes, a caption describing herself as a dancing mommy. That Sunday night, her boyfriend Troy Walker came home with his phone. She saw a message from another woman. An argument exploded. Walker told her he was leaving. He walked out the door. Mariel called his phone repeatedly. He didn't answer. In that window of silence, she went to the bedroom, picked up her 3-year-old daughter Layla, carried her to the bathroom floor, and smothered her with a pillow. When Walker finally answered his phone, he could hear Mariel screaming. 2 words. "I killed her." He ran back to the apartment. He found Layla unresponsive on the bathroom floor. He called 911. He tried CPR. Layla was rushed to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. She was pronounced dead. Mariel was arrested at the hospital. She told police exactly what she had done and why. She was upset about the breakup. At her bond hearing, the testimony was so graphic that the judge asked parents to remove any children from the courtroom. In September 2014, Mariel Bimis pleaded guilty to felony murder. Judge Gregory Adams sentenced her to life in prison. At sentencing, her defense attorney described a young woman who had always felt unwanted, adopted, searching for love, and terrified of being abandoned again. The prosecutor called it what it was: vicious and malicious. As of February 2026, Mariel Bimis remains incarcerated in the Georgia Department of Corrections, serving a life sentence. Case 4, Suzanne Margaret Basso, August 1998. Jacinto City, Texas. Louis Musso was 59 years old. His family described him as having the mind of a young child. He worked at a grocery store in New Jersey. He was gentle, kind, and completely trusting. When a woman named Suzanne Basso promised to marry him, he followed her to Texas. He never came home. Suzanne was not who she claimed to be. She had already named herself the beneficiary on a $65,000 life insurance policy, one that paid out specifically in the event of a violent death. She had also attempted to take control of Louis's Social Security benefits. Over 4 days in late August, Louis was held at an apartment and subjected to a sustained assault involving belts, a baseball bat, a vacuum cleaner, and steel-toed boots. His skin was scrubbed with a wire brush soaked in bleach, cleaning powder, and Pine Sol. He begged for an ambulance. Suzanne refused. He died from a final blow to the head. His body was dumped in a ditch. Bloody evidence was disposed of separately. Then, Suzanne called police and reported him missing, claiming he had run off with a woman he met at a laundromat. Investigators didn't believe a word of it. The body was found. Suzanne's son confessed. Suzanne eventually provided a written statement. At trial, Suzanne arrived in a wheelchair, claiming paralysis and blindness. Prosecutors called it exactly what it was: theater. She had a long history of elaborate deception, including claims she was a triplet and personally knew Nelson Rockefeller. In June 1999, she was found guilty of capital murder. The court sentenced her to death. Her appeals ran for 15 years. On February 5, 2014, Suzanne Margaret Basso was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit in Texas. When the warden asked for her final statement, she said 2 words: "No, sir." Case 5, Betty Lowe Beets, August 1983, Henderson County, Texas. Betty Lowe Beets reported her 5th husband missing. She said he had gone out on his boat on Cedar Creek Lake and never came back. His fishing license was inside, his heart medication was inside, his life jacket was folded on the seat. She seemed devastated. 2 years later, police executed a search warrant on Betty's property. Under a decorative wishing well in the front yard, they found the remains of Jimmy Don Beets, a retired Dallas Fire Department captain. Under a storage shed in the backyard, they found the remains of her fourth husband, Doyle Wayne Barker. Both were wrapped in blue sleeping bags. Jimmy Don had been shot twice with a .38 caliber pistol. Doyle had been shot 3 times with the same caliber. Betty's own son testified against her. He said she had told him, the night of the murder, that she intended to kill Jimmy Don. He came home 2 hours later and found him dead. He helped her bury the body. Then, the following morning, they staged the boat accident together. Betty had tried to collect over $100,000 in life insurance and a monthly pension. She had sold the boat a year after Jimmy Don disappeared. Her defense team later argued she was a battered woman who acted out of survival. Experts pointed to a lifetime of abuse. The jury didn't buy it. In October 1985, Betty Lou Beets was found guilty of capital murder. The sentence, death. She spent 15 years on death row, becoming a cause for domestic violence advocates nationwide. Her final appeals were denied. Governor George W. Bush declined to intervene. His statement was brief. I concur with the jury that Betty Lou Beets is guilty. On February 24, 2000, Betty Lou Beets was executed by lethal injection at age 62. She made no final statement. Case 6. Celeste Beard Johnson, October 2, 1999. Austin, Texas. At approximately 3 o'clock in the morning, Stephen Beard dialed 911. He was 75 years old, a retired Fox Broadcasting executive, a self-made multimillionaire. He told the dispatcher, "My guts just jumped out." Police arrived to find his Texas estate completely dark. His much younger wife Celeste and her daughter emerged from a separate wing claiming they had heard nothing. Stephen had been shot in the stomach with a 20-gauge shotgun while he slept. He survived, for now. Celeste had met Stephen 6 years earlier while waitressing at the Austin Country Club. They married in 1995. What Stephen didn't know was that in early 1999, while being treated for depression at a psychiatric facility, Celeste had begun an affair with a fellow patient named Tracy Tarleton. Celeste told Tracy that Stephen was slowly killing her. She said she could only be with Tracy if Stephen was dead. She showed Tracy where to park, which door to enter, and promised to leave it unlocked. She promised to dispose of the evidence. While Stephen fought for his life in the hospital over the following months, Celeste spent $570,000 of his money. On January 22, 2000, Stephen Beard died from complications related to the shooting. 6 months later, Celeste married again. When Tracy saw the wedding announcement in the newspaper, she realized she had been used. She went to the police. The whole story came apart. In 2003, Celeste Beard Johnson was convicted of capital murder. The evidence was overwhelming, including a secret recording her own daughter had made of Celeste being verbally abusive and threatening. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. As of February 2026, Celeste Beard Johnson remains incarcerated at the Lane Murray Unit in Gatesville, Texas. She will not be eligible for parole until 2042, when she will be 79 years old. Case 7. Marie Besnard, 1947. Loudun, France. The neighbors of Marie Besnard had always admired her. She donated to the church. She was calm and soft-spoken. She was, people said, the only woman in town who could go to communion without first going to confession. They had no idea what was buried in her garden or in the village cemetery. Between 1927 and 1947, 13 people in Marie's life died. Her first husband, her parents, her in-laws, her boarders, her cousins. Each death had a reasonable explanation. Old age, pneumonia, a cerebral hemorrhage, a couple of elderly women who somehow mistook lie for dessert. Twice, within a week of each other. The pattern only became visible when Marie's second husband, Léon Besnard, died in 1947. Before he died, he had confided to the local postmistress that his wife was serving him soup that already contained a liquid. The postmistress wrote a letter to the public prosecutor. When investigators exhumed the bodies, they found arsenic. Léon had 19 milligrams. Her first husband had 60. Her own mother had 48. The evidence was damning. Marie was arrested in July 1949 and charged with murder. What followed was one of the longest legal battles in French history. 3 trials, 12 years, competing scientists, disputed laboratory methods. Defense experts argued that arsenic in cemetery soil could naturally migrate into buried remains. Tubes were allegedly mislabeled. Evidence went missing. In December 1961, after just 3 hours and 25 minutes of deliberation, the jury acquitted Marie Besnard of all charges. She walked free. She lived the rest of her life in Loudun. She died on February 14, 1980, at the age of 83. 13 people preceded her to the grave. Whether she killed them or not, the French courts decided the answer was no. We've just covered cases from Texas, Florida, Georgia, Pakistan, and France, and we're only halfway through. I want to know, where in the world are you watching right now? Drop your city and country in the comments. This channel has viewers on every continent except one. Let's find out if we can change that today. And please support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing this video with your loved ones. Thank you. Case 8, Martha Jewel Beck, 1947 to 1949. New York, Michigan, and across America. Raymond Fernadez had a method. He answered personal ads placed by lonely women in newspapers. He charmed them. He took their money. Sometimes he married them. Martha Beck knew exactly what he was doing because she was his partner. Martha had answered one of Raymond's ads herself in 1947. Within weeks, she had abandoned her 2 young children at a Salvation Army office in Manhattan and moved in with him permanently. She would pose as his sister while he targeted his victims. It gave him cover. It gave her control. What Raymond didn't anticipate was Martha's jealousy. In late 1948, a 66-year-old widow named Janet Fay traveled to Raymond's Long Island apartment. She had been charmed for months. She believed they were in love. When Martha found Fay in bed with Raymond, something broke inside her. Martha smashed Janet Fay's head with a hammer. Raymond strangled her. They disposed of the body, and separately her false teeth to prevent identification. 2 months later, in Michigan, they moved in with a young widow named Delphine Downing and her 2-year-old daughter, Raynell. Delphine grew suspicious. Raymond drugged her. When Raynell wouldn't stop crying, Martha choked the child into silence. Raymond shot the unconscious Delphine. They buried both bodies in the basement. They stayed in the house for days, acting like a family, going to the movies, eating popcorn. Neighbors eventually reported the Downings missing. Police arrived. They found everything. Martha and Raymond were extradited to New York, specifically because New York had the death penalty. Their trial became a national spectacle. Both were found guilty of first-degree murder. On March 8, 1951, Martha Jewel Beck was executed in the electric chair at Sing Sing Prison. She was 31 years old. Her last words, "My story is a love story." Case 9, Valmae Faye Beck, November 27, 1987. Noosa, Queensland, Australia. A 12-year-old girl named Sian Kingi was riding her bicycle near Pinaroo Park. A woman approached her. She said she had lost her poodle. She asked Sian to help her look for it in the nearby bushes. Sian was kind. She went to help. The woman was Valmae Beck. Her husband, Barry Watts, was waiting. What happened next in the Tinbirwa Mountain State Forest was among the most disturbing crimes in Australian history. Sian was taken by force, bound, and murdered. Her body was found 6 days later in a creek bed. She would have turned 13 the following day. Investigators spent weeks chasing leads. The breakthrough came from a real estate agent in the town of Lowood. The couple had fled but sent a money order for rent that revealed their location. Police tracked them to a motel in New South Wales. When officers raided the room, they found Beck and Watts together. At the police station, Valmae sat calmly on her husband's lap, holding his ashtray while he smoked. The evidence was overwhelming. A Supreme Court warrant was obtained to electronically bug their jail cells. The recordings sealed the case. At trial in October 1988, Valmae Beck was convicted of abduction, rape, and murder. She received a life sentence with a minimum non-parole period of 14 years. Watts received life with the recommendation he never be released. Beck applied for parole 3 times. All 3 were denied. In prison, she was attacked by other inmates, leaving her with permanent facial paralysis. Valmae Faye Beck died on May 27, 2008, at Townsville Hospital following complications from heart surgery. She was in a medically induced coma and never regained consciousness. She was 63 years old. She served 20 years. Case 10, Dion Andrea Baugh, August 8, 1996. Roswell, Georgia. Lance Herndon was one of Atlanta's most celebrated entrepreneurs. At 41, he was the founder and CEO of a thriving computer consulting firm. His company had built the 911 software for Fulton County. He had received a National Service Award from President George H.W. Bush. President Clinton had praised him publicly. He had just accompanied the mayor on a trade mission to South Africa. That morning, his employees in the basement office grew concerned when he didn't appear for work. His mother came to check on him. She found his body in the master bedroom. Lance had been bludgeoned to death. 3 alarm clocks had been unplugged. So had the bedside phone. A bloody pillowcase had been stuffed inside the toilet. His jewelry was missing. Someone had staged the scene, positioning him in his usual sleeping posture, arms folded across his chest, as if he had simply drifted off. Within hours of the murder, a woman named Dion Baugh used Lance's credit card to purchase $3,000 worth of furniture. Dion was 27, petite, polished, and had been in a turbulent affair with Lance since April of that year. The relationship was already unraveling. Lance was involved with multiple women simultaneously and had been trying to end things with Dion. 2 weeks before the murder, she had been arrested at his home for criminal trespass, after showing up and pounding on his door in a jealous rage. Dion's DNA was found under Lance's fingernails. She was arrested 17 months after the murder. Her first trial in 2001 ended in a conviction, then was overturned on appeal. A second trial resulted in a hung jury. On September 27, 2004, on the morning her third trial was set to begin, Dion Baugh pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter. She served 10 years and was released in July 2011. Case 11, Cindy Lou Beck, August 30, 2010. Dallas, Oregon. David and Marilyn Jondal had built something beautiful. a 210-acre farm they called Abundant Life. Chickens, cattle, sheep, and pigs in the hills of Oregon. They were described by everyone who knew them as hard-working, devout, and kind. They had 3 sons. They homeschooled them all. What they couldn't have known was that their youngest son, Andrew, had come under the influence of a woman nearly 30 years his senior. Cindy Lou Beck was 46. Andrew was 20. His parents strongly disapproved. The couple had recently been threatened with eviction from their Salem apartment. Cindy had also lost custody of her own children. She told Andrew there was a solution to both problems: kill his parents, inherit the farm, get the kids back. She later told investigators she had decided his parents had to be killed at some point in time. What makes this case especially disturbing is how she convinced him. Authorities described Cindy using a fake form of psychic channeling, claiming to receive messages from animal and tree spirits to manipulate Andrew into believing violence was his only path forward. On the night of August 30th, Andrew rode a scooter to his parents' farm. His father came out to greet him. Andrew attacked him with a metal pipe and a scythe. When his mother came to investigate the noise, she was beaten to death with the pipe. The couple showed up at a neighbor's house at 1 o'clock in the morning, asking for cigarettes. Andrew was shaking uncontrollably. A water delivery person found the bodies the next morning. Both were arrested that afternoon. Andrew pleaded guilty and received life with a 50-year minimum. Cindy Lou Beck pleaded no contest to 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder. As of February 2026, Cindy Lou Beck is serving 20 years at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility in Oregon. Case 12. Amanda Bennett, January 21, 2011. Austin, Indiana. The final message was posted to a local factory message board. It was brief. It said, "It's time to take the pain away, so John Bennett, this is for you. You got what you wanted, no wife and no kids." Amanda Bennett was 30 years old. Her marriage to John was falling apart. She had found out publicly on the internet that her husband was allegedly having an affair with a co-worker. The accusations played out on the Crothersville Forum, a message board used by employees at the local Versatech plant. Strangers weighed in, while lines were drawn. Amanda posted her own replies, defensive and desperate in equal measure. The Sunday before the tragedy, neighbors saw 2 police cars outside the Bennett home. Whatever happened inside that night, no one spoke about it publicly. 2 days later, Amanda shot her 3 children and the family dog inside their home on New York Street. Then she set fire to parts of the house. Then she took her own life. A family member called police to check on them at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Officers forced entry. They found smoke, fire damage, and 4 bodies. The family dog had been shot but survived. He was treated at a local veterinary clinic. The Kentucky medical examiner confirmed all 4 deaths were caused by gunshot wounds. Amanda and one of the children also showed evidence of smoke inhalation. Indiana State Police classified the case as murder-suicide and closed the investigation. A school cafeteria worker later told reporters that one of the children always gave me and one of the other cooks a hug every day. Amanda Bennett died by suicide on January 21, 2011. She was 30 years old. Case 13. Monique Suzanne Berkeley. December 18, 2005. Raleigh, North Carolina. Paul Berkeley had served his country in the Middle East. He came home in December 2005, excited to see his wife and children for Christmas. He had no idea his wife's boyfriend had been living in his house while he was deployed. Monique had been planning this for months. That Sunday night, she took Paul on a date. Dinner. The movie King Kong. During the film, she slipped out to the restroom and called her 18-year-old lover, Andrew Canty. She gave him the location, Millbrook Exchange Park. She said to bring a weapon. She would lure Paul there under the pretense of a romantic walk. Canty and a third accomplice arrived at the park. Paul Berkeley was shot in the back of the head and stabbed. His wallet was stolen to make it look like a robbery. Monique was shot in the shoulder as planned, to give her the appearance of being a victim. She called 911 from her cell phone. On the recording, you can hear Paul Berkeley gasping for air in the background. Police arrested all three within 24 hours. The gun Canty used had been test-fired in a backyard just days earlier, and the shell casings matched. Monique's initial account had too many inconsistencies. 4 days after the arrest, she confessed. She said she did it for the $400,000 life insurance payout. Paul's teenage daughter had already suspected something. Paul had told her he was planning to file for divorce. In September 2007, Monique Berkeley pleaded guilty to first-degree murder to avoid the death penalty. Her co-defendants entered similar pleas. As of February 2026, Monique Suzanne Berkeley is serving life without the possibility of parole in a North Carolina correctional facility. She has been incarcerated for over 20 years. Case 14, Mary Flora Bell. May 25, 1968. Newcastle, England. A young boy was found dead inside an abandoned house on St. Margaret's Road. He was 4 years old. There were no obvious signs of violence. Investigators initially suspected accidental poisoning. They were wrong. His name was Martin Brown. And this was only the beginning. 2 months later, a 3-year-old boy named Brian Howe went missing near his home. His body was found on waste ground among concrete slabs. He had been strangled. His body had been mutilated with a razor and scissors. The letter N had been carved into his stomach, then partially altered to an M. Police interviewed over 1,200 children in the neighborhood. Among them was an 11-year-old girl named Mary Bell, who drew investigators' attention with answers that were unsettling in their precision. She knew too much. She asked too many questions. She remained completely calm. When finally charged with murder, Mary replied, "That's all right by me." The trial revealed a childhood almost impossible to comprehend. Extreme abuse, a deeply unstable home, a mother described as dangerous and mentally ill. Defense experts argued diminished responsibility. The prosecution called her a fiend. In December 1968, Mary Bell was found not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. She was sentenced to indefinite detention. Mary Bell was released in 1980 at the age of 23, under a new identity. She later became a mother and a grandmother. In 2003, the British High Court issued what became known as the Mary Bell Order, granting her, her daughter, and her granddaughter permanent, lifelong anonymity. She is believed to still be living quietly somewhere in the United Kingdom. She has never spoken publicly about the crimes. Case 15, Lorencia, Anne Bbeanck, May 28, 1981, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. At 2:15 in the morning, Christine Schultz was murdered inside her own home. She was 30 years old, a mother of 2 young boys. She was found face down on her bed, blindfolded, gagged with a blue bandana. Her hands tied with clothesline rope. A single point-blank shot from a .38 caliber pistol had passed through her heart. Her ex-husband's new wife, Lorencia Bbeanck, known to everyone as Lori, was arrested 5 weeks later. Lori was 22, strikingly beautiful, a former police trainee and model who had briefly worked at a Playboy club. The press turned her into a symbol. The prosecution argued she killed Christine to stop alimony payments that were draining the household finances. The evidence included ballistic links to her husband's off-duty revolver hairs found at the scene, and a wig found clogging a nearby drain. Lori was convicted in March 1982 and sentenced to life in prison. She always maintained she was framed. She claimed the Milwaukee Police Department, where she had been fired and against whom she had filed a sex discrimination complaint, had fabricated the evidence to silence her. In July 1990, Lori escaped from Taycheedah Correctional Institution through a laundry room window with the help of her fiancé. She fled to Canada. For 95 days, she was a fugitive, and America's most wanted viewer called in the tip that led to her capture in Thunder Bay, Ontario. In 1992, she struck a deal with prosecutors. Her conviction was set aside. She pleaded no contest to second-degree murder and was released for time served. The medical examiner who had testified against her later stated the hair evidence may have been altered. The case remained deeply disputed. Lorencia Ann Bbeanck died on November 20th, 2010 at age 52 from liver and kidney failure in a Portland hospice. She maintained her innocence until the end. Case 16, Nicole Nadra Bacas, June 29, 2012. Montgomery County, Texas. Between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m., surveillance cameras inside On the Rocks sports bar captured Nicole Bacas consuming 21 alcoholic drinks. A tray of shooters, glass after glass. Texas law says a patron should have no more than 2 open drinks at one time. Nicole had consumed more than 10 times that. At 2 a.m., cameras showed her stumbling alone through the parking lot and climbing into her pickup truck. 1 hour later, she was traveling northbound in the southbound lanes of Interstate 45. Her blood alcohol content was 0.286, nearly 4 times the legal limit. Valium and marijuana were also in her system. Her truck struck another vehicle head-on. Inside that car were 3 young people returning from a night out. Nicole Adams, 19. Travis Saunders, 18. Both died at the scene. David Porras, 22, survived with catastrophic, life-altering injuries. Officers arrived to find Nicole standing in the road. She was laughing. She told the first officer a man had been driving. Then she said her father had been driving. Then she admitted it was her. Nicole's DNA was on the driver's airbag and steering wheel. Her left shoe was wedged beneath the driver's side pedals. At trial in August 2013, on the 4th day of proceedings, Nicole Bacas changed her plea to guilty. Judge Michael Seiler sentenced her to 38 years in total, 15 years for each count of intoxication manslaughter and 8 years for intoxication assault, to be served consecutively. In later appeals, her defense attorney alleged evidence had been planted at the scene. The courts rejected those claims. As of February 2026, Nicole Nadra Bacas remains incarcerated at the Mountain View Unit in Gatesville, Texas. She has served 13 years and will not be eligible for parole until she has served at least 19 years of her sentence. Case 17, Latonia, Bellamy, April 4th, 2010, Jersey City, New Jersey. Nia Hawk was 25 years old. Michael Mucciocchi was 27. They had just gotten engaged. That night, they were unloading gifts from their car on Randolph Avenue, still in the afterglow of their engagement party, when 3 people approached them from the darkness. The couple was ordered to the ground. They complied immediately. They offered no resistance. Michael was shot in the head with a shotgun. Then Latonia Bellamy, 19 years old, a college student with no prior criminal record, was told to shoot the woman. Her cousin reportedly said to her, "You want to shoot a gun? Shoot the gun." Latonia fired. Nia Hawk was struck in the head. She died at the scene. The trio then tried to steal the victim's car. A steering wheel lock stopped them. They fled on foot. Latonia accepted $40 from the proceeds of the robbery. 5 days later, she turned herself in voluntarily. She gave a videotaped statement and led detectives to where stolen items had been discarded. At trial, she claimed she had fired away from Naya, not at her. The prosecution argued the bullet's trajectory told a different story. In June 2012, Latonia was found guilty on all counts. Her case has been in and out of the courts ever since. An appellate court found that her sentencing judges had failed to adequately consider her background, years in state care, and a history of abuse. In September 2024, she was resentenced to 70 years. She will not be eligible for parole until approximately 2077, when she would be in her mid-80s. As of February 2026, Latonia E. Bellamy is incarcerated at the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women in New Jersey. She is 35 years old. Case 18, Lucia Isabella Quirina de Berk. September 2001. The Hague, Netherlands. Lucia de Berk was a nurse. She was meticulous, experienced, and well regarded by the families of patients she cared for at Juliana Children's Hospital. Then, in September 2001, a baby named Amber died on her shift. Within 24 hours, hospital administrators had reviewed records and linked Lucia's presence to several prior deaths across 3 hospitals over 4 years. They contacted police. A statistician calculated the probability of these deaths occurring on one nurse's shift by coincidence at 1 in 342 million. It was presented to the court as near proof of guilt. The prosecution described Lucia as a psychopath obsessed with death. They pointed to her diary, where she had written about giving in to her compulsion and keeping a very great secret. Lucia testified these entries referred to her secret habit of reading tarot cards at work, something she considered unprofessional. Nobody believed her. In 2003, Lucia de Berk was sentenced to life in prison for 4 murders and 3 attempted murders. In 2004, an appeals court increased that count to 7 murders. In 2006, she suffered a stroke in her prison hospital. Then, scientists started looking more closely at the evidence. The statistical analysis was found to be fundamentally flawed, built on biased data. A laboratory in Strasbourg proved there had been no lethal dose of digoxin in baby Amber's body. That report had been sitting in a drawer at the Netherlands Forensic Institute for 2 years while Lucia was in prison. In 2008, the Dutch Supreme Court reopened the case. In April 2010, Lucia de Berk was officially exonerated and cleared of all charges. The Dutch government issued a formal apology. Lucia de Berk had served approximately 6 years in prison for crimes she did not commit. She is currently free and living in the Netherlands. Case 19, Ashley Page Benton. June 6, 2006. Houston, Texas. Irvin Chu Park was the kind of place where parents brought their kids for Little League games and dog walks. On a warm Tuesday afternoon, it became the site of a violent confrontation between 2 rival gangs involving between 20 and 30 people. Ashley Page Benton was 16 years old. She had no prior arrest record. She was a high school student who had drifted into association with a small street group called Crazy Crew, based near Lamar High School in Houston's Montrose neighborhood. The opposing group, MS-13, had shown up at the school that morning to intimidate members of Crazy Crew. By afternoon, both groups had converged on the park. MS-13 members arrived armed with baseball bats, bricks, and machetes. During the melee, Ashley faced off against a 15-year-old MS-13 member named Gabriel Granillo. According to a witness, Granillo had raised a brick over his head, about to strike someone nearby. Ashley drew a double-bladed knife she had purchased for $8 and stabbed him once in the chest. The blade punctured his heart. Gabriel Granillo died at the park. Ashley was arrested the following day after confessing at her home. She was tried as an adult. In June 2007, after 18 hours of deliberation, the jury deadlocked. A mistrial was declared. In December 2007, Ashley accepted a plea deal: 5 years of deferred adjudication probation, 300 hours of community service, and $4,000 in funeral restitution. She fulfilled every requirement. In September 2009, a judge ended her probation 3 years early. The criminal charge was dismissed. Ashley Paige Benton's current location is not publicly disclosed. At the time of her release, her legal team stated she was starting over in a new city because MS-13 had issued death threats against her. Case 20, Christine M. Bilis, September 22, 2009, Charleston, Vermont. It was a clear autumn afternoon, dry roads, a straight stretch of Route 5A. No reason for an accident. At 4:16 p.m., Christine Bilis swerved her car into a large pine tree at full speed. Her husband, Charles, 57 and legally blind, was in the passenger seat. He was not wearing a seatbelt. Neighbors described the impact as sounding like dynamite going off. Christine survived with minor injuries. Charles was trapped in the wreckage. He was pronounced dead on arrival at North Country Hospital. Investigators initially treated it as an accident. There were no skid marks. Christine claimed she couldn't remember what happened. Perhaps a medical blackout, she suggested. She was dealing with insomnia. She was on Ambien. The case might have stayed closed. Then, Christine joined a dating website called OkCupid. She began corresponding with a man named Kevin Leland. Over months of phone calls, she opened up about the crash. She told him it wasn't an accident. She said it took months to figure out a method they couldn't trace. She described seeing the tree and thinking it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Leland was disturbed. He went to police. He agreed to wear a recording device during a face-to-face meeting. Christine repeated the confession. A second recorded meeting confirmed it. She was arrested in June 2011, nearly 2 years after the crash. Originally charged with first-degree murder, she ultimately pleaded to manslaughter. In November 2012, she was sentenced to 7 to 15 years. She served 7 years and was released. In June 2019, she was arrested again, this time for domestic assault and making death threats against a man. She was sentenced to an additional 16 months. As of February 2026, Christine M. Bilis is believed to be living in Barton, Vermont, under post-release supervision. 20 women. 20 cases that remind us how ordinary evil can look from the outside. A devoted mother, a grieving widow, a quiet nurse, a teenage girl in a park. None of them fit the image we carry in our heads of what a killer looks like. And that is exactly what makes these stories so important. We tell them so we understand. We tell them so we remember the victims, the people whose names deserve to outlast the crimes. Stay informed, stay vigilant. Trust your instincts. This has been Capital True Crime. We'll see you in the next one.